Right now, baby boomers hold more than $83 trillion, over half of America's household wealth, while Gen Z and millennials together control just 10%. Boomers bought homes for $65,000, and now the same median house costs over $400,000. Under 35 homeownership has dropped to record lows. How did the rules of opportunity get rewritten so completely, and who decided the ladder should be pulled up? The answer is not just about luck. It is about a system engineered to favor one generation while locking out the next. Baby boomers, born between 1946 and 1964, entered adulthood at a moment when the doors of prosperity were wide open. Government programs built in the wake of World War II gave them a launch pad that no generation before or since has experienced. The GI Bill paid college tuition for millions of veterans and offered zero-down, low-interest home loans. By 1950, veterans made up nearly half of all college students, and over 2 million home loans had been guaranteed at rates that seem impossible today. Public universities charge just a few $100s a year, often less than 2% of the average annual wage. That made a degree accessible to almost anyone willing to enroll. Meanwhile, strong labor unions covered more than a third of all non-farm workers in the 1950s. Union jobs meant higher pay, health insurance, and pensions that promised security long after retirement. For boomers, this was not just a matter of luck or hard work, it was a structure built for upward mobility. Even the average wage earner could count on a steady career, a house, and a comfortable retirement. These policies created a foundation for saving, investing, and building wealth. The American dream was not a slogan, but a set of institutional guarantees. Looking back, it is easy to see why so many boomers now recall their youth as a time when anyone who worked hard could make it. But those rules were written with government backing, collective bargaining, and public investment. Advantages that would later be withdrawn from the generations that followed. A first-time homebuyer in 1980 faced a median new house price of about $65,000. By 2025, that figure has soared past $400,000. The price of entry has multiplied more than 6 times in nominal terms, while wages have lagged far behind. For Gen Z, the idea of buying a starter home is out of reach. The national homeownership rate for Americans under 35 has dropped to roughly 36%, the lowest in years. In some cities, it is even lower, with young adults locked out by down payment requirements, stricter lending standards, and relentless competition from cash buyers. The housing market itself has changed. Once a path to middle-class security, homes are now treated as investment vehicles. Institutional investors and cash-rich buyers, many from older generations, snap up entry-level properties, sometimes entire blocks, turning them into rentals and driving up prices. In 2025, more than 1/4 of single-family homes in some markets go to investors, not families. Meanwhile, restrictive zoning and property tax policies keep supply tight and favor long-term owners, making it even harder for newcomers to get in. For Gen Z, rent payments often swallow half of their income, leaving little left to save for a down payment. The promise that hard work leads to homeownership no longer holds. Instead, the ladder that once lifted boomers into the middle class has been pulled up behind them, replaced by a wall of inflated prices and dwindling opportunity. Student debt in the United States now stands at nearly $1.8 trillion, a figure that keeps climbing year after year. For Gen Z, this is not just a distant number, it is a monthly reality that shapes every decision. The average student loan balance for young borrowers is rising at a pace of about 6.7% annually, the fastest of any generation on record. That means even as some older graduates slowly chip away at their balances, Gen Z finds their debt growing faster than they can pay it off. The burden does not end at graduation. Typical monthly payments for Gen Z borrowers are now over $500. For many, that is a quarter or even a third of their take-home pay, gone before rent, groceries, or health insurance are even considered. These payments do not just limit spending, they block the path to saving for a down payment, starting a business, or investing for retirement. The message is clear: follow the rules, get a degree, and the reward is a lifetime of bills that never seem to shrink. This is not an accident. It is the direct result of decades of policy choices that shifted the cost of education onto students and families, while public investment in colleges fell and tuition soared. For Gen Z, student debt is not just a number, it is a daily reminder that the promise of upward mobility has been replaced by a financial straitjacket. The United States now carries a national debt of $38 trillion, a sum that has ballooned at a pace few could have predicted. Much of this debt traces back to decades of fiscal choices made while baby boomers dominated the electorate and held the reins of Congress. Tax cuts passed in the 1980s, the 2000s, and again in 2017 slashed government revenues, while mandatory spending, especially on Social Security and Medicare, grew to consume more than half of all federal outlays. Social Security alone now accounts for about $1.5 trillion each year, a figure that dwarfs federal investments in education, housing, or infrastructure aimed at younger generations. The effects of these decisions show up in the physical world as well as on the balance sheet. Across the country, more than 42,000 bridges are officially classified as structurally deficient. That is about 7% of all bridges in the United States, many of them built during the post-war boom that benefited the boomers themselves. The backlog for road repairs now exceeds $400 billion. While nearly half of all public roads are rated in poor or mediocre condition, water systems leak billions of gallons each day, and thousands of communities face chronic contamination risks. Younger Americans are left to foot the bill, inheriting not just a mountain of debt, but a rotting public inheritance. Every delayed repair multiplies the cost, and each year of underinvestment means Gen Z will pay more, both in taxes and in the lived reality of failing infrastructure. The promise of stewardship has been replaced by a legacy of deferred maintenance, with the burden shifted onto those least able to bear it. For many in Generation Z, the burden does not end with finances or fading opportunities. It reaches into their mental health. Suicide is now the second leading cause of death for Americans ages 10 to 34, a ranking that would have been unthinkable for young adults just a generation ago. Emergency rooms across the country are seeing a surge in youth self-harm. Between 2016 and 2021, visits for suicide attempts and self-injury among children and teens rose by more than 160%. These numbers are not just statistics. They reflect a generation living under relentless pressure, where anxiety and despair have become part of daily life. Economic instability, overwhelming debt, and the sense of a future slipping out of reach have left deep scars, turning personal struggle into a public health crisis that demands attention. Accountability for the current crisis does not rest with every individual boomer. The real power was concentrated among a narrow group of politicians, financiers, and corporate leaders who shaped the rules and reaped the rewards. During the 2008 financial collapse, Congress approved hundreds of billions of dollars in bailout funds to stabilize the banks. But none of the chief executive officers or top executives at the major institutions faced criminal prosecution for their roles in the disaster. Instead, the government settled for over $200 billion in civil penalties, mostly paid by the firms themselves, while the public absorbed the fallout. Ordinary homeowners lost their savings and jobs, while the architects of the collapse walked away with bonuses and golden parachutes. This is not just history, it is a pattern. When the system fails, the losses are socialized, while the gains remain private. Blaming every boomer misses the target. The responsibility lies with the elite decision-makers who engineered a system that shields themselves and leaves the rest behind. Gen Z now navigates a world where over half the nation's wealth is out of reach, and debt shapes every decision. As policies and priorities are decided, the stakes are generational. The future is not inherited, it is built. The question is, who gets to write the next rules?